Just talking on the factor of risk, is one of the riskier things I think you spoke about in the book was the cartel work, and you was at the whim of somebody else's decisions almost. Like you could put everything right, but what was that like, the experience working with those guys?
So we worked on a show inside the Real Drug Lords, and it was basically 3 months embedded with different cartels around in South America, and it was different to the sort of work I normally do, and I found it quite hard to, if you go into an active volcano or you're dealing with, I don't know, you're on a foot patrol, an anti-poaching foot patrol in South Africa somewhere, that you can deal with those hazards. Dealing with narco traffickers is very different. You have young guys with mega egos, nothing else to lose. Trafficking drugs, very dangerous, very it's a very very dangerous lifestyle they lead. And to be in and working with them, and for such a long period of time, was just pretty stressful, I have to say.
And you ended up in like genuine situations, like, so Foxy was interviewing one of the guys and you was there for safety, but it was like there was a deal where if you went off question, they would shoot you dead.
Yeah, so Foxy was interviewing a guy, and basically the brief was beforehand, like, you veer away from any of these questions, then you'll be killed. And it was fairly standard by then that, like, if they found out we were tracking where we were or anything like that, then then they'd job us. Look, super interesting job being given the privilege to be in there, but like when I got back from it, I was just thinking, I don't want to do that again. It's pretty full on. Get me in. I remember when I was inside the volcano, it was erupting. This one time I was in there, it was kind of kicking off, and I remember being scared and thinking, God, what a job is next? It was narcos. They'd like get me into Peru or get me into Colombia with Foxy, like get me out of this volcano. And then I remember doing the narco job and thinking, I want to be back inside the volcano.
Okay, right. Yeah, and there's so many more stories, which I just advise people to go read the book. But you did say there was a lot cut for the book. So have you got anything that's interesting to hear that was cut out of the book?
I mean, so the book really, Lessons from the Edge, follows my life from being a kid all the way through till now, this year. And to fit that amount of adventure into one book and keep it as a page turner and keep people interested, like quite a lot of it, it has to get rid of. And towards the end of the book, I scrape over this expedition series that I was working on, and I talk about 2 or 3 of them with Steve Backshaw. But that was one of the most intense couple of years, because I went from, let me think about this, I was, yeah, that. Right, so I went head to head with, I was in Russia with Guy Martin doing like a 5-week job there, filming, came back, 12 hours at home, flew out to Borneo, went head to head with Ed Stafford over 10 days on his Discovery show, flew back, went into the bunker for, sorry, no I didn't, I then flew back, had 12 hours, then went to Mexico, cave diving with Steve on his expedition show for 4 weeks, came back, had 12 hours at home, went inside a nuclear bunker for an experiment on circadian rhythm and mental health, locked in a bunker on my own, in the dark, with no contact to the outside world, no phones, no clocks, no tech, nothing, just in a hole in the ground on my own. 10 days, came out, flew to Greenland that night. I had another 5 weeks in the expedition there, flew back, then went to the volcano. Yeah, so it was just like this mental year, and I've like crammed it in the book to like 2 chapters, but it was just an incredibly bonkers.
What does that feel like? Does it feel like a blur, or is it because it's purpose driven? Is it distinctive? Each part?
No, it's hard. And for example, there I did 11 world firsts in 11 months, right? And they're big. They're like finding the oldest figurative art and hand paintings in the world, 50,000 years old, in Borneo, exploring new cave passages in Tulum, diving, cave diving, that have never been seen before. Paddling 2 rivers in Suriname in South America that have never been paddled before. Like all of them new, all of them first time that they'd been documented or done. And you just kind of like, they go by in a blur and you kind of forget and you don't process. And that's why it was so helpful to me mentally and physically when lockdown happened, because I was just like burning out. I was just doing one big job after another big job after another, and lockdowns with coronavirus happened. I was in South Sudan and we got called back from there. I was there for 3 weeks, got called back from there and straight into lockdown. And it was kind of like the first time that I'd taken stock in like 2 or 3 years. So it does get hectic, but it's a freelance world, and you know, if you're not working, you're worrying about work.
I mean, it sounds mad, and it sounds to be doing firsts in the world, and somehow they pass by you. You know, it's like crazy. So sad in a way as well, in some ways.
And that's why it was such a good thing to write the book, to be able to take. You know, lockdown was at least 6 months of no work for me. So it was such a good time to sit down and focus on what I'd actually been doing, and to, you know, now my head is much clearer, and I'm aware. Like, for example, we can talk about we become what we think about, and I've got clear examples of how that's happened. So it's just more a case of reflecting, I think.
For a young man who, you know, you've always kind of had a vision for purpose, like you've had some goal in mind. What's your advice to somebody who feels that more lost? You know, like the other 95% of people.
Yeah, it's a good question. So for someone who's lost, and I think most people generally are, until they find something that really floats their boat. Like I said, if the why isn't big enough, you won't do it. If someone wants to be famous and a YouTuber, for example, like they have to then go and find this thing that then floats their boat to be able to get out and do the filming, right? So for someone that was lost, I would say the best thing that you can do is find out what interests you, and it's find a passion. And if you can't even get there, and some people can't change the job because they've got a mortgage and a car and all the stuff that holds us down, and 3 or 4 kids, you know, that stuff all becomes a tether, and you know, you can't change too much. But what you could do is set yourself a challenge, a physical challenge, a mental challenge. It doesn't have to be big. You know, it could be going and climbing your nearest mountain. In the UK, you could do, you know, Snowdon or Scafell Pike or Ben Nevis, or choose something that interests you and then work towards it. So I would say is find a goal, break it down, write it down, and then start being accountable for it. And I'd say another thing that goes with you know, a healthy body and a healthy mind help you achieve these goals. If you're cramming shit into your face every day, then it's going to reflect in your mindset. I'm talking about like bad food, for example, and not exercising. When I was in the bunker for 10 days, the main things that I took away from it was, if I'm not exercising and I don't get daylight every day and I don't interact with humans, then my mental health is tapering off. And so, you know, if you can get outside and exercise with mates every day, that's like one fundamental building block to then helping you achieve your goals out with physical exercise. So yeah, find out what your passion is and then work bloody hard. Process and graft are the 2 things that people don't see. They look at successful people and think it's all right for them, but actually what they forget is they've had 12, 15, however many years of just doing the basics and doing the basics well.
Yeah, I think that message works the other way around. It's like there's a price to be paid for it. Like, you know, it's not free.
Nothing's free, and there's no easy way. Everything, you know, if something's easy to get, right? If something's easy to do, it's easy not to do. It's easy to eat an apple a day. It's also easy not to. You know, if something's hard, process and graft, like it's also delayed gratification. I think we live in an age now where people want instant gratification. You know, they want something now. You know, the internet's fast, 5G's fast, everything's like now. You order something online, it's here the next day, or the same day. You know, delayed gratification, you know, is the art or the discipline of postponing something, kicking it down the street a bit so that you have something bigger, better, longer, stronger, whatever that thing is. And that comes down to process and graft.